What drugs would you would you recommend to a person that wants to explore different realms?
A big question. I think my answer to that would be to go to Terence Mckenna. Terence McKenna has written some very interesting books on these subjects and has had some amazing travels in South America and Central America. And he distinguished between partnership drugs and dominator drugs. Those were his exact words that he used. So he, in order to give the distinction, he was talking about drugs which are basically used and promoted. And there's two ways you can promote something. You can either encourage people to do it, that's one way you can promote it, or the other way you can promote it is to make it illegal, and then people feel they're really cool taking it because it's illegal. So whichever way, it's still a promotion, if you understand me. So the drugs that he was talking about that are really what he calls dominator drugs, which are actually encouraged in these two different ways to basically switch people off and therefore neutralise them, include things like alcohol and heroin and crack cocaine and barbiturates and amphetamines. These are all regarded to be dominator drugs in his way of looking at things. I would actually extend that definition slightly further and include most prescription drugs, particularly the mind-altering prescription drugs like Valium, Ativan and the Prozac and other such drugs. Those I would put in the dominator category. So they're basically designed to switch people off. Certain of these drugs, particularly the pharmaceutical ones, are actually designed to diminish brain function, very deliberately so. And then there's the other ones which are what he calls the partnership drugs. And these are very much with the opposite intent. So these are the ones that help us to get together and to share and to actually get in touch with each other, in touch with nature, the natural world. When it comes to Salvia divinorum, it's a strange thing to say because the two uses of this particular plant have very different consequences. I've spoken at length about taking the extract. Now the other form is simply to take the leaf and chew it, and you get this very distinctive taste come out, and see how that affects you. It's a very gentle experience. Some people find it quite dreamlike and dreamy. I actually find it's very good if I want to get on and do a job, but that's just me. So I would say that all the particular plants that you could choose to work with as a shaman, the one I would most strongly recommend you to work with would be Ayahuasca, also known as DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine. Now, this particular plant spirit can be consumed in its native form, which is the two particular plants which you then mix together and brew up in the methods which I'll describe to you in the YouTube shaman films that you've already had access to for some time. That's one way you can do it. And then the other thing you can do is you can then get hold of what is basically a laboratory prepared substance, which would mean it's just DMT itself. So it would be the pure thing without anything else added to it. And that's certainly another way you can do that. Now again, there's a difference in terms of time, because if you're talking about ayahuasca, we're really allowing 5 hours for the experience. It's an experience that gradually comes up and then you are in that experience for that length of time. When we're talking about DMT, the best way to consume it is exactly the same way as I described for the Salvia divinorum extract in the bong, with the breathing exercise for 10 minutes beforehand and then a really good forced inhalation. If you do it that way, then you are having a very intense experience indeed for a much shorter time. 5 to 8 minutes is what you want to think of for that. And then there's yet another possibility, which is something I've only come across this year, and it's called Changra, and it's a particular part of the DMT preparation process. It's not the pure DMT, it's something that is a byproduct, and I've heard very good reports about this. I've not had any experience of it myself. It's consumed in the same way as you would consume the pure DMT, and again it's an intensive experience. What I'd say about these plants is what they do is they have the ability to help us to see things in a very different way. They also have the ability to get us in touch with our own healing, and as such is very useful. And most important of all, they really do help us to get in touch with the natural world, which has to be a good thing when people are spending less and less of their time in the natural world because they're in offices and apartments and cars and watching TV and with computer screens. So anything that encourages connection with the natural world is great.
What about LSD? Have you ever taken LSD or mushrooms, and would you recommend that as a way to expand your awareness?
Yeah, that's a good question. My experiences with LSD go back very many years indeed. I'm talking about, embarrassing, I think more than 30 years ago. That was when I had my experiences of LSD. I only had the 3 experiences, and each experience was so very similar to the other one that after the 3 experiences my own conclusion was, I'm not bothering with this anymore, I don't see the point. It was a valuable experience in its own way. I personally am much less comfortable with what I would regard to be anything that's synthetic. So my personal opinion would be I wouldn't bother with LSD because it is a synthetic substance, and I just don't feel so good about these. It's also, there's an issue about legality, it's illegal. Salvia divinorum in the UK is legal, Ayahuasca in the UK is legal. When it comes to LSD, no, that is not. That's an illegal substance, and it's a laboratory synthesized substance. Having said that, I know a number of people who've had very worthwhile experiences with LSD. I know of a small number of people who definitely have come out of the experience as what people call casualties. And I do remember reading a very long time ago a view about LSD, which I'm just going to throw in there because I think perhaps it's got something of relevance. And the writer said, well, the thing about taking LSD is it's rather like trying to ripen an apple with a blow lamp. Perhaps not the very best way you can do that particular thing. Now, when it comes to mushrooms, this has indeed become a very controversial subject because up until only a few years ago, mushrooms were legal to consume. That's no longer the case, so now there is the issue about illegality. I think this is in many ways a crime, because in this country it's our indigenous fungus which has been put on this particular part of the planet for our enlightenment and edification. So in my personal opinion, the only crime about mushrooms is that they have been made illegal when they are a part of our natural lifestyle and way of life, and traditionally the Druids and other practitioners have made use of such plants. Wiccans have also done so, pagans have also done so. So I do feel there's a great deal of respect for such plants, sorry, not for such fungi. I have had experiences with mushrooms which does also go back a long time indeed, and my experiences of them were that they were very vibrant, lively energies which were very much wanting to help human beings, and mine gave me lots of very good advice at the time. I was very young when I took them, in my very early 20s, and the advice they gave me, I would say, has stood me in good stead for the rest of my life since. Because what I saw is I saw brilliant, bright light. I saw all these connections. I saw that DNA was moving. It was vibrant. It is actually life. We call it the building blocks of life. It is life. It's amazing. And it's only through that experience with mushrooms that I really began to appreciate DNA. And I would say that certainly helped me in that part of the universal soul retrieval work. The fact that my understanding of DNA had actually been completely transformed by that experience. So it's a strange situation with mushrooms, because if a person wishes to consume them, they would need to wait until September in Britain, and they would need to go out into the right kind of field, which is quite a problematical thing to find. You need to really have some good guidance, and the field tends to be a field which has had animals grazing in it, so that it's a grazed field, and you want to go out there ideally early in the morning, and what the mushrooms of this country like most of all is a couple of days of sunshine and a couple of days of rain, followed by a couple of days of sunshine. That's what they absolutely love. And then the mycelium, which exists at all times in the field, suddenly produces fruiting bodies, which are the mushrooms that people harvest. And then you'll be free to harvest those. You need to be aware that technically it is now illegal, so you want to be very discreet in the pursuance of such an act, and the rest would be up to you. And from what I remember from a very long time ago indeed, is that people used to consume around 25 of these small liberty caps. Psilocybe cubensis is the actual botanical name of the substance we're referring to. So yeah, that's certainly a possibility for those people who wish to do that.